Good afternoon, everyone, or good lunchtime. Thank you. I'm Dr. Warren Doctor. I'm the President and CEO of the East Tennessee Historical Society, and I'd like to welcome you all to our Brown Bag Lecture today. Thank you all so very much for coming. It's your interest that keeps these things alive, and I'm very pleased about that. Also, I would like to encourage anyone who's not been through our exhibition here at the museum, Voices of the Land, our permanent exhibition, or if you've not seen the temporary exhibition in our feature gallery about the 1982 World's Fair, I'd like to encourage everyone to come have a look at that. And finally, if you're not a member of the East Tennessee Historical Society, I would like to encourage you to join. That's how we can continue to have these fun brown bags, which are very informative and also very interesting. Sorry about the fire truck. I didn't mean for that to happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about up-and-coming programs and then a little bit about today. The next big program that we're going to be having here at the History Center is what we're calling the History Hootenanny. And it is not the History Fair, so let me manage expectations immediately. But what it is and what it will do is showcase all the things we do here in the building, in the museum. We'll be having authors to come talk about their books and how to get published in history. We'll also be doing genealogical workshops. And there's also a lot of activities and things for kids and history headquarters. And then we'll have living history and, of course, live old-timey music in the Voices of the Land exhibition. So there's going to be a lot to do. And, of course, there'll be tours to Knoxville's historic homes as well. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're very excited about History Hootenanny. That's on August 20th, and also it's totally free for everyone to attend. There's a lot of fire truck stuff happening. The second thing to say is that on Wednesday, the 7th of September at noon, Joe Emmert, Marilyn Childers, and Sheila Evans will be coming and talking about veterans and veteran cemeteries buried in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So that will be a very interesting talk. I have worked with Joe on some of these projects and grave sites, and it's very, very fascinating, so I'd recommend everybody come to that as well. Today, and I don't know if everyone knows this, August 8th is Emancipation Day in the state of Tennessee. And so it was an important date. Today we are free to the public. It is a date for us to reflect on the history of African Americans and some of the issues around things that have happened historically, slavery, and of course the aftermath of that, going into the 20th century, things like Jim Crow, things that happened in the Reconstruction, things that happened in the Civil Rights Movement. So we're free today, and we have several books on offer in our lobby. Our speaker today is William Isom, and he's a sixth-generation East Tennessean and the director of Black in Appalachia, which does research, education, and support. There, he coordinates the project's research, community database, development, documentary film, and photo production, as well as history collection and educational events with local residents. We have partnered with him on a couple of projects, and it's always great. And I should also say that he's the proud father of two boys, Devin and Isa. So without further ado, I'll turn over to William Isom.
Good afternoon. I guess it's a formally afternoon. How y'all doing? Good. Doing good. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. And yeah, thanks for coming out. We'll get right into it. This is Kelson Isom. It's my great-great-granddad, and Laura Whiteside. She's my great-great-grandma. They were born into slavery and were emancipated. He was emancipated out of Gate City, Virginia. She came out of Granger County, Tennessee. They were both the products of slave holders and enslaved women. But I have to start off with them because without them, I wouldn't be here. And they're kind of the ones that in researching them, I cut my teeth on how to research Black life in the mountains. That's my great-granddad, the tallest one with the hat on. That's Gordon Isom and all his boys. When he wasn't farming, I guess he was busy doing other things. But that's in Hawkins County, Tennessee. They settled in Mooresburg along the Holston River and lived there until the TVA came and displaced them. But my uncle says, some of us like to bemoan the fact that we got moved off of the land by the TVA, but my uncle says if it wasn't for the TVA, we'd still be down there barefooted. So maybe it's not so bad. But like Dr. said, Black in Appalachia is a project in a collaboration with public media, residents, university departments, libraries, archives, community organizations to highlight and make available the Black history in the Mountain South. And I did not come up with this phrase, Black in Appalachia. You guys are fortunate enough. I came up with this phrase from a book called Blacks in Appalachia, written by Dr. William Turner, and Dr. William Turner's here today. I'm super excited to have him here. There's a lot of pressure now. He's here watching me. But we'll get right into it. There's another one of my mentors who has just passed away, named Darlene Wilson in Southwest Virginia. Said this analogy one time when I was a young student, and it warped my mind permanently forever, and I've been using it ever since. She said that there's these two mountains. One mountain is the official narrative. It's the things that are in the courthouse. It's the courthouse records. It's the things that are produced by governments that chronicle people's lives in some way. The other mountain is the vernacular history. It's the oral histories. It's the stories that we tell each other when we're sitting on the front porch. It's the stories. So if the official narrative is the newspaper article about something that occurred in town, the vernacular history is the stories that people tell each other about what really happened, you know. And by holding these two things up together as equally valuable, we can get to something that we may be able to consider the truth. And the other analogy that kind of fits with this is, in between two mountains you have the holler. Does everybody know what a holler is? And the holler in the natural world, that's where most of the biodiversity is. It's where the water comes from. And in this analogy, by holding these two things up as equally valuable, we have the most biodiversity of story and narrative to pull from. Here's a clip from a newspaper, undated. There's nothing that will disturb a Southerner so much as the celebration of the Emancipation Day by the Negroes. I just like that. And this work, I'm going to slow down and wheel back a little bit because we're talking about the 8th of August. When I was coming up, I didn't know what the 8th of August was. I just knew that it was the time that we went to Newport and they had block parties and we got to flirt with girls, and that's all I knew. And I knew in Greenville they had block parties, so that's all that I knew it was. But as I got older, and particularly through the research of Mr. Bill Murrah back there and Gene Maddox, who just passed away, I began to learn about what the history of the 8th of August actually was. Gene Maddox and Bill Murrah worked with an organization called AHA, which was the African American Heritage Alliance of East Tennessee. And they did a ton of work back in the early 2000s, Bill? And in making sure that people knew and reviving the celebrations of the 8th of August in our region. And so they did a really good job because it had kind of waned for a little while. But big up to Gene. And his work will continue on. So right now, or previously, there had been some core communities that kind of continued to celebrate the 8th of August as Emancipation Day. That's Greene County, Cott County, and Knox County, Tennessee, but also some communities in western Kentucky, Paducah, Russellville, places like that. And that's all I really knew was that there was these vestiges of this celebration, and they only existed in these little pockets, right? But as we got to doing research and learning from some of the other people that had came before me, we learned that the history of the 8th of August was after the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to the state of Tennessee, nor did it apply to West Virginia. It didn't apply to sections of Louisiana or sections of Maryland. These were federally occupied areas or areas that had been returned back into the fold of the Union. The Emancipation Proclamation only freed enslaved people in states that were still in rebellion. So the Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to the state of Tennessee. The then military governor of Tennessee, Andrew Johnson, he was in Nashville, and the story goes that the people that he held in slavery, escaped from the Confederate lines. They were confiscated by the Confederates, and a few of them had escaped and made their way to Nashville. And when they got to Nashville, they had to stop in Knoxville, stayed at a Story man's house. His name was Story. We know that because he sent a bill to Andrew Johnson and was like, you got to pay me for feeding these people. They make their way to Nashville, and then when they get to Nashville, there's a couple of different narratives, but one narrative is when they got there, he hired them, which in effect, he's paying them for their labor. They're no longer enslaved. There's another oral history narrative through the Black Johnson family that tells about that they were called into the room. Andrew Johnson's wife told them that they were free. And they could leave or they could stay, and they chose to stay, most of them. So Samuel Johnson was one of those formerly enslaved people. That date that they were told that they were free or hired was the 8th of August, 1863. And Samuel Johnson is credited with the spread of the 8th of August as a holiday. I think there's some speculation of how he did that. There's been a lot of out-migration, particularly after the Civil War. There was a lot of migration of families in and out of the region, and that may have carried the day. I don't think that he didn't have TikTok, so I don't think that he spread it that way, but he's credited with the creation of the 8th of August, and which I think is kind of cute because he made his own manumission date, Emancipation Day. So that's 1863. In 1871, this is the first known mention of the 8th of August as a celebration. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but Samuel Johnson was there. There was a brass band, and this was in Greenville, Tennessee, and they marched down Irish Street to Tusculum College. Good. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Greenville, but that's no short walk from Irish Street near downtown to Tusculum College. It's not a short drive to Tusculum College from Greenville, but they did it anyway. And so this is the first known celebration of the 8th of August that we know of in 1871. By 1900 in Knoxville, the celebration had spread to Knoxville. And one of the big components that we see in the record is excursion trains. Black folks would rent whole excursion trains and travel from Montgomery and Birmingham and all over the place to come to East Tennessee, to come to Johnson City, to come to Greenville, to come to Knoxville to celebrate the 8th of August. Thousands of people. You can see here there were 3,500 people came from Birmingham, Asheville, Bristol, and Middlesboro to Knoxville to celebrate. And there's a park in Knoxville where I think that the first documented celebration of the 8th of August in Knoxville, I think it was Chestnut Park. Is that right, Bill? Chestnut Park, which is now, I think the interstate runs through it. It's over near Knox Seed. There's a Chestnut Road up on the hill. And that was the first place where the 8th of August was celebrated in the city of Knoxville that I know of. And it continued to spread. This is a photograph of Emancipation Day Parade in 1924 in Jenkins, Kentucky, which is in Letcher County, Kentucky, which also has received a lot of the damage from the recent floods that occurred there. But Jenkins, Kentucky had the 8th of August celebration, as did Harlan County, Kentucky, Bill's community. Lynch, Kentucky, which is a coal camp that's set up by U.S. Steel, they celebrated the 8th of August in Lynch and in Hazard and Harlan. So we've got documented evidence that for whatever reason, these people began to celebrate the 8th of August in the coal camps of Southwest Virginia and Eastern Kentucky. Here's some more newspaper clippings from Eastern Kentucky and Southwest Virginia. Big Stone Gap was a huge hub for the 8th of August, at least in the newspaper records. They would have baseball games. Baseball was huge at that time. And so the colored teams would play each other, and they would often host the colored league teams to play. I've heard stories that the baseball players in the coal fields were particularly good because they often recruited great athletes. They would hire them in the coal mine, but they were really hired to be able to play sports. And so they had a couple of ringers on the teams up in Appalachia and Lynch and Benham. This is from Middlesboro, Kentucky, 1951. It's celebrated as Emancipation Day by the colored people of Middlesboro, Kentucky. They had a big dance, was enjoyed at the hall on 20th Street. So you can see the spread of it. And I learned from Bill Murray that the 8th of August at one point was celebrated in almost 50 communities in 12 states at one point. So that was the height of it. Memphis, Tennessee celebrated it. Clarksville, Tennessee still celebrates the 8th of August. And so it spread even into Missouri, which seems remarkable. And I think that we might be able to trace black migration patterns if we really dug into like how the 8th of August spread in and between these communities. This is something I found when researching. There's a group again in Lynch, Kentucky called the Eastern Kentucky Social Club, and they're migrants from Eastern Kentucky coal fields into every city in the country, every major metropolitan city in the country. But I'd found this I just got a prescription for bifocals, and so I've gotten to the bifocal age and I'm working on it here. This is in 2004. This is the 8th of August picnic celebrated by people from Eastern Kentucky in Indianapolis, Indiana in 2004, which surprised me when I was going through these records of Eastern Kentucky families abroad and saw that they were celebrating the 8th of August as late as 2004. So this is mostly, except for the 2004, you can see like this is a lot of this is a lot of black and white history, a lot of newspaper articles, a lot of yawning. But the 8th of August continues today. And that's one of the things that we wanted to be able to exhibit and make available for people to see. The 8th of August is still happening. And it's not all dead, dry black and white history. It's not all newspaper articles and black and white photographs. This is in Newport, Tennessee. So one of the things we want to do is be able to not only tell the tale of the 8th of August history, but show that these celebrations are still going on right now in communities, and these black communities are thriving and alive today. So we brought Holly Rainey, who is a photographer here in Knoxville, along with us, and for 4 years, we documented what was going on in Greenville, Newport, and Knoxville. This is in Newport, Tennessee. They call their 8th of August the Tennessee Picnic, and it happens every other year. It happened this year. And this is a beauty pageant there. This is Greenville, Tennessee. They have they party in Greenville. They party in Newport too, but they party in Greenville. So there's lots of just like dance parties. And this is a party in the street in Wesley Heights, which is the historic black community in Greenville. Also Newport, dance party at the country club. And I may have said before, we produced a short 30-minute documentary about the 8th of August from the information that we gathered from Bill Murray and Gene Maddox and other community members. And so this is available online. There's even a teacher's guide. If you're an educator, you can use that teacher's guide. Thanks to Lisa Oakley, she hooked me up with an educator that helped us draft a teacher's guide for the film. And so all this is available online on blackandappalachia.org/8th of August. But we also knew that there were more individual stories that needed to be fleshed out in regards to the 8th of August locally. And so we held these community forums. The top one's in Greenville, Tennessee at J.J. Jones AME Zion Church. The middle one is here in Knoxville at the Beck Cultural Exchange Center with Reverend Renee Kessler. And the bottom one is New Zion AME Zion Church in Newport, Tennessee, with the Tennessee Picnic members. And so what we would do, and I'm not talking smack about my elders, but I do know that if you put an older person down or any person down and interview them about something, there's going to be things that they forget about their life, elder or not. But we thought designed this mechanism where if we put multiple older people together and ask them questions about their memories of the 8th of August, they would bounce off of each other and they would spark each other's memories. And that seemed to work well with this setup. And so these are also available online. You can see Gene Maddox there, but there's this lady here is Dessa Parkey Blair. She's actually from Hancock County, Tennessee, and she don't take no mess. You can see she's like ready to get you. But Dessa Parkey Blair was an educator. She's passed away now as well, and so is Brother Avon Rollins there in the middle. Dessa is from a community called Sulphur Hollow, which is on the border of Claiborne County and Hancock County in Tennessee. And she was an educator. Her dad was a veteran, and as a veteran, he felt obligated to go to the county commission in Hancock County and tell them that he needed a school for his children, and he needed these things. I fought for this country, give me what I fought for, which is admirable back in the day. And so they did. But adjoining Miss Parkey Blair's community is another community called Hoop Creek. And Hoop Creek also celebrated the 8th of August very early on. It's right there on the border of Hancock and Claiborne County, Tennessee. And so she was able to talk about reminiscences about her experience at Hoop Creek, or Hoop Creek as it's called. Oral histories, yeah, I don't know why that slide's in there. And we continue to do still documentation, but we also produced a little book, a little homemade book here, and you can order it online. I'm going to give 2 of these away. I'm going to make y'all do a quiz in a minute. I'm going to give y'all some books. But with the photographs of Holly Rainey and some short narratives by me about different locations, Newport, Knoxville, and Greenville, about the history of the 8th of August there. This book, Holly Rainey shot so many photographs, this book could be 4 times as big, but that's all we can afford. If anybody's interested in trying to figure out with us, like how do we make these photographs more available in a tangible form, there's tons of documented photography material there. So just throwing that out there. And again, this is the website if you want to see all the 8th of August stuff that we've produced. So, okay, so I'm going to do a little, I don't know what time it is. Let's see. Okay, I'm good. So in working with Bill Murrah and scanning a lot of his materials and research in about the 8th of August, he had this VHS tape, and I digitized this VHS tape just to see what it was, and it was an 8th of August or Emancipation Day conference that was held here in East Tennessee Historical Society. And I came across this mention by Dr. Daniel Williams, who's a photographer, about this Emancipation celebration in Gallia County, Ohio, Gallipolis, Ohio, which is in Appalachian, Ohio. It's right across the river from West Virginia, not too far from Huntington. Point Pleasant, I think, is closest. And he said in this video that it is the longest running Emancipation celebration in North America, and that intrigued me. And so there's Gallia County, Ohio, on September 22nd, is when they celebrate their Emancipation Day, and they've been celebrating it consistently since 1862, which in fact does make it the longest running Emancipation celebration in North America that I know of. So we started working in Gallia County, Ohio to document that as well. Once we found out about it and found out that it was in Appalachia, off we went. And so I guess over the past 6 years we've been working up there to document the Emancipation celebrations there. This is just a couple of photographs from that. They like to do reenactors, but so it's Abraham Lincoln and there's Frederick Douglass there at the Junior Gallia County Fairgrounds. And so just to kind of compare and contrast, to kind of, spice it up a little bit, there's The similarities that we've seen across some of these emancipation celebrations, particularly with the September 22nd and the 8th of August, these things have occurred even though people have not been free, right? People in 1863, when the 8th of August hit, it wasn't all good, right? It wasn't like, oh, we get to participate fully in this democracy on land and do whatever we want that everybody else is doing, right? That's not how it worked. The 8th of August celebration became the hope for freedom. And people continued to celebrate the 8th of August through Jim Crow, through Reconstruction, through the racial violence of Red Summer, racial expulsions, racial atrocities in the South and in Tennessee. And so even today, people are continuing to celebrate the 8th of August in spite of the police murdering people in the streets, right? And so this is something that we continue to do in the hope for freedom, right? The segregationist policies that occurred in and around the 8th of August, there was a couple of stories that resonated across geographies. The 8th of August, or Emancipation Day, was the only day that black folks could go to the public swimming pool in Newport and in Gallipolis, Ohio. And then they would drain the pool and clean it the next day. And theme parks also. That was the only day that black folks could go to Chilhowie Park and visit Chilhowie Park. Greenville had its own swimming pool. The Negro Women's Civic Club were this gangbuster group of women that back in the day just organized everything, and they would act as liaisons between the black community and the elected officials of Greene County. And they did a really good job of leveraging resources for the black community. And so as a consequence, Greenville had its own black pool, so they didn't have to worry about that. And people would come, visit family back home and get to swim and hang out. The independent communities minimized the impacts of black codes, Jim Crow, and economic exclusion. We saw that in southeastern Ohio. These communities stayed mostly to themselves. They were farming communities, and so the picnics that they would have out in the country, they just didn't go to town. And so that's how they avoided Jim Crow, mostly. These were always combinations of school, church, and family reunions in the broader celebration. The Tennessee Picnic happens every other year in Newport, and it's always like church reunions. The folks from Parrottsville Church come over, and they all celebrate together. And so that's another marker of the Emancipation celebrations. Taking off work. I don't think we get to do that as much now, but back in the day, folks would take off of work. I don't know if they did it. They would do it in the coal camps too, and so I guess that's the benefit of being organized with the UMWA. You get to take the 8th of August off, perhaps. But people would take the 8th of August off of work, and there's newspaper articles from Knoxville bemoaning the fact that people are going to have to do their own dishes and wash their own clothes because the black folks are off work that day. And people regularly across geography said it was just like Christmas. It was the Black 4th of July. People look forward to it every year, all year long. Beauty pageants, and that's something that's kind of waxed and waned through the years. The only place that I know that still does a beauty pageant is the Tennessee Picnic in Newport. And it was really popular at the time back in the day, because it was a way to affirm black beauty standards amongst the community when you weren't going to be validated for your beauty outside the community, right? And more recently, there has been more broader community acceptance and support. You see, the 8th of August is not just for black folks now. You go to an 8th of August celebration, and there's all hues and shades of people there really enjoying themselves, which is cool to see. I just want to point out a few differences that I've seen. Man, I'm buzzing through this. I better slow down. Gallia County is really, what I've seen has been really rurally rooted. They would have a farm where they would gather and celebrate out in the country. Whereas the 8th of August events that I have seen have always been kind of centered in these smaller towns, Newport and Greenville, and in Knoxville, the city of Knoxville, more urban centered. The only place I've ever heard of a goat wobble. Does anybody know what a goat wobble is? No? I didn't either. It's where they barbecue a goat. And so I was told about the goat wobble in Newport. Of course, Cott County is cooking goats. In Gallia County, it takes the idea of Emancipation Day and kind of turns it on its head a little bit, because Ohio was supposedly a free state, right? You cross over the Ohio River, you're in free territory. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case. You'd get over there and there were paddy rollers, which are kind of like border patrol today, and so they would kidnap people, grab them, and take them back south and sell them back into slavery, take them back. And there's also the high presence of the Ku Klux Klan in Gallia County. I know that we had the Ku Klux Klan here in East Tennessee, but the amount of Klan activity still today in southeastern Ohio surprised me. I was like, I'm from Tennessee and this is a lot. That was something that I think was really striking to me, and why people in southeastern Ohio stuck to their rural settings and didn't go to town, because they were trying to avoid the paddy rollers and the Klan. And so what it meant in 1862, when they're celebrating the 8th of August, September 22nd in southeastern Ohio, there were a lot of black Union soldiers that settled in southeastern Ohio. And so once President Lincoln signed the first draft of the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, they began celebrating immediately. There was a class consciousness in Gallia County that I hadn't really heard here in East Tennessee, people actually talking about systems of class and how it plays out not only in the black community, but in black relations to town, right? They said that, and this is a paraphrased quote, that the bougie black folks don't like the September 22nd or the Emancipation celebrations, because it's all country folk, right? And so that's something that I'd heard that from folks in Gallia County several times. So there was a class consciousness that I didn't hear here in East Tennessee. The greasy pig. Y'all know what the greasy pig is? Y'all gonna have to wake up. I'm gonna start dancing or something. The greasy pig, they grease a pig and you gotta chase it and try to get some money. Or they would make a greased pole where they put some money on top of a pole and you try to climb the pole. And because of how we live now, most of the Emancipation celebrations here and in Gallia County are celebrated on Saturdays now. It's usually Emancipation Saturday because we all got to go to work now. But I think I'm about done. Yeah. So the 8th of August has waned and came back and stayed in some places, has been really rooted in a lot of places, but now it's seeing kind of a revival. There was, the past 2 years, there's been 8th of August celebrations in Pennington Gap, Virginia, Lee County, Virginia, at the Appalachian African American Cultural Center. Johnson City has been hosting, I think, for 2 years, the 8th of August. There was, Greenville continues to celebrate, Knoxville continues to celebrate. And so we're seeing like this resurgence. I saw that Clarksville had their 8th of August this year, Clarksville, Tennessee. And so there seems to be some kind of resurgence in it, particularly in light of Juneteenth being a national holiday. I think that this is kind of a diversification of our celebrations to be like, yeah, Juneteenth is good, but we still have our goat wobble over here, right? And so, and I think that's healthy. It's fine for us we can celebrate 2 days, right? Okay, this is all of our links. We're on blackinappalachia.org. We're on Omeka, blackinappalachia.omeka.net. That's our community history database. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're on TikTok. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what happens when you get a 23-year-old working with you. We need a TikTok. So, and that's my email address if anybody wants to give me an email, shoot me an email. These are 2 books that I've kind of dug up along the way that, there's not a lot of really good books on emancipation, but this one's called Festivals of Freedom, Memory and Meaning in African American Emancipation Celebrations, 1808 till 1915. This is a pretty good book. It's just like a summary of things. And then this one as well, I really like. It's Afro-American, so it's dated, right? Afro-American Celebrations, Oh Freedom. And so this is another one that I like. If you want to come out, take pictures of them and order them online. I'm going to give away some books. Who's the youngest person here? Well, come on and get it.
Thank you very much, Will.
All right, who's traveled the farthest? Where'd you travel from?
Oh, today?
Yeah. Just in general, who's traveled the farthest? I know Bill Turner traveled from Houston, but
I live in Houston.
but you already got a copy of this, right? You already got you can get a copy of this.
Who came from outside Knox County?
Ah, who came from outside Knox County?
Sevier County.
Sevier County. Sevier County going once, going twice.
Blunt County.
Blunt County, I mean, that's kind of tight. Y'all gotta find that. Okay, well, that's all I have. I don't know if I get penalized for going too short, but
That's just room
I
for
can,
questions.
yeah, I can certainly take questions. Man, I buzzed through that. Yeah, Paige.
Okay, so I think it's really interesting that you didn't say the word Juneteenth until like the last 10% of your presentation. And I'm really interested to hear you say more about the relationship between emancipation celebrations, like community-based and history-based, as compared to, like, do you feel like Juneteenth is like the one that got popularized and it represents all of the community organizations, or is it just like it's the VHS that beat out the beta or whatever? Like,
I like it. This is just me. I'm
Uh-huh.
sure everybody has other opinions about this, but I think that we needed, I mean, there's like, what is it, May 19th in Florida, September 22nd in Ohio and West Virginia. Some people like, North Carolina does mostly watch night, which is like New Year's Eve into January 1st. So there's all these different celebrations. I think that my opinion is that we needed a day. We needed a national day that we could all recognize and celebrate across the board and all understand like this is the day. So yeah, that's what I think. And what I've seen since Juneteenth is now official, what I've seen is municipalities, cities will host the Juneteenth celebrations. And then community groups host their September 22nd, 8th of August.
Interesting.
And so in Greenville, for example, Greenville had their first Juneteenth this year, and the city paid for everything. They had it out downtown, and then for the 8th of August, you know, the community members chipped in and paid for the events. They curated the events and had it up in Wesley Heights in the Black community. And so I think that that's what I've seen different. One of the things I've seen though that and I think that may continue, like municipalities, since it's a national holiday, are going to host their Juneteenth celebration. But there was one community, and I can't remember, I think it was in southwestern Virginia somewhere. I'm not going to call her name, but it was all like, you know, white folks organizing a Juneteenth celebration. So it's like, what do we, like, yeah, that's a national holiday and we should all celebrate it. And I think white folks need to be able to feel comfortable to celebrate Juneteenth as well. So what do we do? I mean, so we're going to have to face up to, we're going to have to figure that out and be like, okay, we don't do that. We're going to do this. This is cool. So I think that's something that's going to be coming down the pike. We're going to have to try to figure out.
And I'm excited to hear you say that instead of Juneteenth diluting the opportunities or the awareness of individually celebrated emancipation dates, that it's the opportunity to dig a little deeper
Yeah.
and say, what is our community's tradition? What is our community's, like you compared the two general celebrations, and like what reflects our community's celebration of emancipation and what freedom means. And that's an opportunity, that Juneteenth as a popular thing and the nationally acknowledged thing,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
white thing, is an opportunity to really like shine a light on other ones.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's so far so good, it seems like.
I was wondering how you see in these different communities, especially where people maybe took the holiday into other areas, counties, states, and whatnot, and as they get further removed from, like, per se, Samuel Johnson and like the meaning of the holiday, how you see the story change as it takes root into different communities.
Yeah. I don't know if you have, but I talked to a journalist from Western Kentucky a couple of days ago, and I think, again, from my perspective, I think that some of that narrative has gotten lost along the way. And I think a lot of our elders regionally didn't know what the 8th of August was, that they were celebrating. And I think that only because of the work of the African American Heritage Alliance of East Tennessee back, a decade or so ago, like reiterating that history, we know a little bit better, but I think folks in Western Kentucky may have, and some other places I think that got a little thin along the way. I've heard it was a celebration of Haitian independence. It's like, well, on August 8th. And then I heard, the most popular thing that I heard is like, well, this is the day that news reached our community, which wasn't necessarily the case either. So it's almost like superimposing Juneteenth narrative on top of that.
So your mission of advocating and teaching about the story and its importance, where do you find you're getting the most penetration, like historically and then today? Like how are you disseminating this out into the general public? Is it social media? Is it the PBS thing? Was it how is it your communication strategy historically and going forward worked?
Yeah, social media is certainly the way that most information gets out the broadest.
Can you move towards the microphone a little bit so our folks at home can hear? Just repeat the question.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
how are we getting this information out and these narratives out into the public in the most, you said penetration? I'm a child, it's fine. Social media. And so YouTube has probably been one of the easiest and biggest ways that we can reach a broader audience. So I think a lot of people are still like are watching videos on their phone and watching their videos on the computer. The website, some. Of course, Instagram. We have Twitter. I don't really use that much, but Facebook certainly, and Instagram. But probably the component that has given us the most reach and the most popularity has been the Black and Appalachia podcast. So there's a podcast that's hosted by Dr. Nkechi Alameen, sociologist, Angela Dennis, who's a journalist here in Knoxville, and a bevy of other really smart women. And so that podcast is distributed through PRX, the Public Radio Exchange, and that's probably the thing that has allowed us to reach out more than anything. That than YouTube, maybe. So, yeah.
Mr. Isom, first of all, thank you for doing this. It was extremely informative. I wanted to comment about August 8th and its connection to Haitian independence. I read that as well, and I hadn't heard about emancipation. I'm not from Knoxville. I hadn't heard about Emancipation Day on August 8th until just yesterday. Oh. Because I came here yesterday, so that's how I wound up here today.
Where are you from?
I'm from California.
California, where?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, okay.
So, and we do watch night.
Oh,
That's
you do watch
very
night,
much
yeah.
a Western Northern thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just make a quick comment about TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to be kind of a joke to some of us of a certain age, which it is hilarious. But guess what? That's really going to be where you're going to get a lot of traction. I promise you. Because the amount of information and what I have learned about chopping onions, about history. I'm telling you, it's amazing because you get all the traction, and then the follows. It's really wonderful the amount of information that you get, and it's just so easily researchable and what's the other word? Verifiable as well. So I think TikTok will be a really good resource to pursue.
Yeah, I like to, just because I'm too old to be doing TikTok, but I like to make a joke about it. But really, in reality, when you talk about reach, we set up a TikTok a year ago, and the amount of interaction, follows, video views has almost surpassed any other platform that we have, even YouTube. And so it's kind of amazing and terrifying.
Do you have a vision that you see that you'd like this August 8th to be 10 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought that far ahead, or 20 years from now? Do you see something more than that's happening now, or is it just the grassroots people that have come up through it?
Well, I know Rick Staples at one point, who was our representative for Knox County, he got it through, I think, through the House to make the 8th of August a state holiday, like an official state holiday, and it didn't make it to the Senate. So I don't know where the bill of that language is at, the language of that bill is at, but that could be something that could be easily done in theory. But
How about you? Do you have a vision?
Do I have a vision?
Yeah,
Well,
or are you just telling us the history at this point?
I mean, the vision for me, if I had a vision for the 8th of August, that would continue to be celebrated and in Greenville and Newport and Knoxville and some of the coal camps of Southwest Virginia and Eastern Kentucky. And my vision would be that I get to visit and hang out and celebrate. And after 4 years of documentation, I just want to hang out with my folks. Like, I don't want to do any more work. I want to sit up at Pennington Gap with Bill Turner and hear him tell me lies.
Is there anything else happening today in Knoxville besides this?
Yeah.
It's going to be a movie.
Oh.
A movie
Across the street,
The Tennessee
Theater,
6 p.m.
there's a major event here. There have been several events. Yesterday morning there was a libations service at a cemetery over near Knoxville College, where 3 of the people who were freed on the 8th of August 1863 are buried here in a cemetery here. And Beck Cultural Center, which is a center that's supportive of African American heritage and history, they sponsor a libation service at that gravesite yesterday. And then today is the big event, which is they're calling it a gala. And so there'll be lots of people come. There'll be a movie called something like Selma Revisited.
It's a documentary about Selma, and one of the women who participated in Selma when she was a child will be in attendance at the movie.
And how do I find out? I'll talk to you later about how to find out about this stuff. I'll talk to you later.
If you look for that Cultural Exchange Center, if you Google that, you should get it, or go to their Facebook page. Probably has more up-to-date than their website.
You're saying VET or BECK?
BECK, B-E-C-K.
Culture.
It's the African American History Center here in Loveland that preserves history.
Thank you.
I want to add to 8th of 8 celebration. So I used to work, I'm a local historian, I worked with the Maverick Hazen House, and last year the director there, Patrick Harris, developed a special program that he does on Juneteenth and on 8th of 8th that demonstrates the 4 different paths to emancipation that a slave had and illustrates it with Maverick family slaves. It's a very interesting program, not specific to this. We do talk about Johnson and how 8th of 8 occurred here in town. And for those of you who don't know, who are local and never been there, it's worth the trip to one of the most outstanding collections of family items in the country in a house museum. Also a lot of interesting history, and they're the only one that's open on Monday which is today, and it's the 8th of 8th. So, sir, I don't know if he did it on Saturday, which is when we do them, but if you showed up there at 2 o'clock and you were the only one and asked him to do it, he'd do it for you.
Wow.
I'll be happy to give you details afterwards.
Thank you.
Support our local house museums. Go to them.
He is doing those tours at 1 and 3 today.
So he's open to that?
Neighborhood Hazen House, yes.
Oh, wait, what was that one? Maybe, okay.
Yeah, same house. Yeah.
On Dandridge Avenue,
Yes.
across the street from our park that has a great statue of Alice Haley.
But that's
I'm
not,
just down the street from Beth.
Yeah, right, the Beck Center on the same street.
All right, y'all calm down. I'm going
Well, I just really want to thank you, Will. I'm just deeply grateful. There's times when in the past, like 15, 20 years ago, when I just thought, does anybody really care about this thing? And then you know, you picked it up, and Renee Kessler at Beck Center picked it up. Of course, there's Gene Maddox in Greene County, Shadina Dockery, and others in Newport. But I did want to say that to me, one of the most phenomenal things, and the thing that has touched me so personally, is that this is something that had virtually no institutional support. I mean, people in Knoxville knew about the celebration in Greenville and Newport and maybe Newmarket, but people didn't know about what was happening in Lynch, Kentucky, or Paducah, or Memphis. But for decades, since, you know, for decades after decades after decades, people have celebrated their freedom, and with, like I said, with virtually no institutional support, and it's been going on, we know, at least 151 years in this region because of that newspaper article that you showed. And to me, I just think we ought to just like get that in our heads. I'm gonna let people know this for the first time, but I'm white, okay? So white people, I mean, like, we got to have a company or a church, or we got to have an institution that carries this forward. But there was no real institution. There was an internal thing, an internal drive and desire to say, I may not be completely free, but, you know, I have this drive to be free. And I want to celebrate that with other people who have that same drive. I just want to add one other thing. And that is that the first time that I learned that it was celebrated anywhere else other than these, you know, 4 or 5, Johnson City, blah, blah, right in this area, was I was talking to a woman named Fannie Jones in Greenville. And I said, did you celebrate the 8th of August when you were, she was in her 90s, you know, when you were a girl in Greenville? And she said, no, I didn't live in Greenville. I lived in the coal camp in Kentucky. And so that was the first time that it, in my awareness, that it jumped the state line. And Fannie Jones is 103 now, and still carries that memory of celebrating the 8th of August in the coal camps in Kentucky.
All right, if all hearts and minds are clear. Thanks for coming out, y'all.
thank you.